In a dark, cluttered apartment in the heart of a city that never truly sleeps, a lone figure sat hunched over a glowing array of monitors. The hum of fans and the rhythmic tapping of a keyboard filled the room, a symphony of isolation. This was Atlas, a reclusive hacker known only by their online alias. Outside, the world churned with chaos, wars, protests, financial collapses, but all of it felt distant, like a show playing on a screen they could choose to ignore. For Atlas, the real world was messy, unpredictable, but the digital world, that was theirs to command. Firewalls, encrypted networks, dark web corridors, it was a labyrinth where they felt alive. They were an observer, a ghost in the machine, someone who pulled back the curtains but never got involved. Information was their currency, not morality. It all changed one night with a single message. Atlas wasn't prone to surprise. They'd seen too much, unearthed secrets too damning to share. But this was different. The message was embedded in a routine data packet during a deep dive scan of a corporate server. Its contents piqued their interest immediately. Enter Mirage. Do you have the vision? Attached was an untraceable link. No metadata, no source, nothing. It was as if it had materialized out of thin air. Atlas hesitated for all of 3 seconds before clicking. Curiosity was an occupational hazard. This kind of breadcrumb on a trail was too enticing. The link led to a download, an application simply titled Digital Mirage. It was a virtual reality game, or at least that's how it appeared on the surface. The download wasn't listed on any gaming forums or marketplaces as far as Atlas could tell. This wasn't just another indie project or underground beta test. This was something new. With their custom-built VR rig, which they'd enhanced far beyond what any retail manufacturer could dream of, Atlas booted up Digital Mirage. The world that unfolded before them was mesmerizing. A sprawling digital city, an endless network of paths, markets, and sprawling metropolises rendered in vivid, impossibly intricate detail. Vibrant glimmers of light floated through the air, illuminating a skyline that seemed to shift and adapt with every passing moment. The game had no tutorial, no guide, no rules. A deep voice greeted them upon entry, calm and dispassionate. You are the observer. What you do with this world is up to you. But remember, consequences ripple farther than you can see. Curious, Atlas began exploring. The game was both eerily realistic and tantalizingly strange. Major world events were displayed as optional missions. One opportunity stood out as more peculiar. Atlas analyzed it. A fictional embassy in a coastal city was preparing a controversial trade deal. They were given the option to expose corrupt negotiations or ensure the signing went ahead unimpeded. It was easy enough. They picked a side for the sake of testing. Expose the deal. In the game, it took less than an hour of infiltrating the embassy's firewalls and uncovering compromised conversations. They uploaded the evidence to a simulated news network within Digital Mirage. Job done. The mission turned green and a simple overlay stated, event concluded, impact minor. Atlas logged off unimpressed. Another VR sandbox, albeit with a polished coat. But the next morning brought something they weren't prepared for. Flicking through a muted news livestream, they froze. The headline glared at them, scandal uncovered in trade deal negotiations. Leaked documents force resignation of officials. The embassy from the game, the trade deal. The same phrases Atlas had seen inside the simulation were now being broadcast on major news channels. Atlas's first reflex was denial. It had to be a coincidence, right? Except the words, the details. It was no simulation. Somehow the in-game action had mirrored or caused real-world events. Impossible, they whispered under their breath. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The next day they logged back in. This time they selected a different mission, one uncomfortably close to the heart of global affairs, a humanitarian crisis in Eastern Europe. The simulation requested they smuggle encrypted funds to local activists or redirect resources to undermine their efforts. They hesitated longer this time, but ultimately chose to help. Again, within the game world, it felt like a task well done. Simulated refugees found aid and shelter through the funding, a tiny spark of hope amid the chaos. The next morning, real-life reports flooded the news. Cryptocurrency had been funneled to organizations operating tireless humanitarian efforts on the ground. Governments scrambled to investigate. Authorities blamed shadowy hacking syndicates. Atlas's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a game. Digital Mirage wasn't a virtual experience mimicking reality. It was influencing it. With mounting unease, Atlas delved deeper into its inner workings. The connections became clearer with each login. The game's rendering of geopolitical events wasn't speculative. It was precise, real-time, a globally synchronized reflection of financial systems, political power balances, and covert operations. Think tanks and governments were pawns in a larger simulation, and Atlas, sitting in their dim apartment, was pulling strings without fully understanding the consequences. More missions appeared, each more consequential than the last, leaking sensitive information about an arms deal, redirecting supply chains for food relief efforts. But each choice, altruistic or manipulative, left Atlas on edge. The lines blurred further with every passing interaction. Were they helping humanity or playing God? Then came a message they couldn't ignore. An anonymous player within the game reached out. They called themselves Oracle, claiming to be another observer.
You've noticed it, haven't you? This isn't a game. It's a weapon. And you're not the only one playing.
Atlas's hands froze above the keyboard. They didn't respond.
We're being watched, Oracle continued, their virtual avatar shifting and glitching as if interfered with. Everything you do in Mirage is monitored. There are others, organizations, countries, testing the limits, shaping reality to their favor. And if they find out who you really are, well, let's just say your days of anonymity are over.
Atlas felt their pulse quicken. The apartment, once a comforting cocoon of solitude, now seemed suffocating. For years, they'd been the shadow, the unseen hand in the background. Now they were a potential target.
Shut it down. Walk away. Or be prepared to face the consequences of a world that's no longer your own.
But here was the dilemma. Atlas couldn't look away. The allure of Digital Mirage wasn't just its influence. It was the sense of power, of purpose. For the first time, Atlas wasn't just observing. They were part of something, an entity with the capacity to reshape the world. And yet, was it worth the cost? Atlas sat in their chair long after Oracle's avatar had vanished, staring at the virtual city sprawling across their screens. The familiar hum of circuits and the glow of monitors felt cold now. Their next action lingered in the air like an unanswered question. They could walk away, delete the game and bury the truth with it, return to their life of quiet isolation. Or they could dive deeper, risk being exposed, and see just how deep the rabbit hole went. Atlas clenched their fists, their gaze hardening. The choice was always theirs, or was it? As they reached for the VR headset, the screen flashed with a new prompt. Do you have the vision to continue? For Atlas, the line between reality and simulation had already blurred, and there was no going back.